Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Frank. I'm the Web and Publications Manager for Connecticut's statewide legal information website, ctlawhelp.org. And I'm here today with a couple of our legal aid professional colleagues to talk about pro bono portals. So first I'll let our panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Don Phillips. I am the Pro Bono Director at Statewide Legal Services of Connecticut.
I'm Steve McGarity. I'm the Executive Director of Community Legal Aid in Akron, Ohio.
My name is Melissa Pachola. I'm the Director of Pro Bono and Community Partnerships at Legal Aid Chicago. And I just want to say that apparently we are not as popular as robots because the AI session had way more people in it. But my feelings are not hurt. So.
But we don't hallucinate nearly as much, so. So we have a slide here that talks about what a pro bono portal is. It goes into some depth, so you can read it, but I'm not going to read it to you. But in short, the word portal comes from a Latin word porta, which means gate. And so a portal is a point of access. It's used a fair amount in technology. Both Don and I Googled the word because we're like, what is a portal exactly? And so this panel is made up of 3 legal aid professionals whose organizations have leveraged technology and portals specifically to utilize volunteers from the private bar to deliver legal services to their clients. And each of these portals work a little bit differently. When we sat down to plan this presentation, we realized that we have 3 different portals that do slightly different things. And so we figured that probably a lot of people in the audience maybe want a pro bono portal but aren't sure where to start or which portal to pick or what you're going to use a portal for. And so we decided to have this discussion where everybody would talk about their unique perspective in using a portal to streamline the delivery of legal services. So to introduce you to the people on our panel and to give you a sense of how each of these organizations uses a portal to streamline their legal services delivery, I'm going to pose a question to each of them. And so I'm going to start with Don. So the question is, what made you realize you needed a portal? And when you answer this question, if you could give people a quick sense of how our portal is used, that would be really helpful.
Sure. So we're a little bit different than a lot of organizations that were looking to build a new pro bono portal because we actually had one. It was built about 12 years ago. And during its time, it was useful. It basically allowed not only SLS, Statewide Legal Services, to post at least the description of its opportunities, pro bono opportunities on it, but other organizations. We had somewhere around 15 to 16 organizations, all in Connecticut, all nonprofit, mostly civil legal aid organizations that were also posting their opportunities. What it didn't do, though, is it didn't have a lot of functionality, if you will. It would allow for what we call evergreen postings, which were simply just descriptions of the type of programs we had. We had direct rep, we had clinics, we had a remote phone brief advice program, and so we would, we basically said, here's what it is, and it gave basically attorneys the opportunity to fill in their name and send it on to us and say, I'm interested. And then it was up to us to respond and see, interview and do all that. Unfortunately, it stopped being supported many years ago, the platform, and we started seeing a lot more spam, and we started seeing a lot less interest by the private bar. So it really lost its effectiveness and actually was becoming somewhat painful to deal with because we'd be getting all these weird expressions of interest in our programs that were coming from bots or coming from the public looking for a pro bono attorney. So in the end, we were averaging less than 1 hit a month from an attorney looking for an opportunity, and we knew at that point that we really needed to build a brand new portal. So we did starting doing research, and then COVID hit. We saw our volunteer numbers really go down. A lot of our pro bono attorneys stopped volunteering during that time. So we were desperate to really fix this and to give us a really good tool that would be very different from the one that we had, really updated, and so a lot of interaction, something that looked really good for the people who are posting it with lots of functionality, and so we researched other portals. At that time, we're now talking about 2020, 2021, portals started popping up all over the place, so we had a lot of opportunities to review those. We got together some focus groups to talk to them. People we saw were stakeholders in this. We wanted to know what they were looking for, what they needed, and we basically hit on this idea of applying for a TIG so that we could build a very much customized portal, one that's cloud-based, low maintenance, low cost, and can be used not only by us but by all the other organizations that were on the prior portal. So that's our story about why we thought we needed a pro bono portal.
So I can pose the same question to Melissa. Can you describe, kind of so people understand how your portal is slightly different and what made you realize that you needed one?
Yeah. Well, I think
I don't know if we can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry. I think the first thing is that I didn't build a portal. So that's the first thing, is that we leveraged the existing technology, which was Paladin, and Kristen is in the room, so hi, Kristen. Thanks for building it. And when we began using Paladin and we saw that law firms were on there and corporations were on there and our Bar Foundation started using it, we realized that there was a pain point of not integrating with LegalServer, which was our case management system, which is many people's case management system. So, again, credit where credit is due. Kristen called us. I didn't call her. She called us and said, hey, we think we would like to be able to integrate these two things using an API. And so that is what we did. We applied for a TIG to be able to integrate those two things. And the real focus of our need for this and what we were trying to do is smooth out that second step. So you just heard Don talking a lot about like how you get people to realize that there are opportunities, right? Recruiting attorneys. And what our project is really about is getting them on the case, right? So you've built it, they're there. How do you make it actually happen? And how do you minimize the number of clicks, the number of double tracking and spreadsheets that you're having to do? And I think from a legal services perspective in particular, not having to always update staff on the status of that pro bono placement, right? And I think a lot of us work in programs where pro bono can be maybe not isolated, but separate from the cases that you are placing. So not having to say, no, I didn't place that yet. Yes, I did place it. That kind of thing is just minimizes the amount of communication that sometimes can be repetitive. And so we did this TIG, and I'm going to show just a few screenshots of what it ended up looking like. And for those of you who utilize the Pro Bono Opportunities module or have seen the Pro Bono Opportunities module in LegalServer, you will see that that's what this looks like, right? That is what the LegalServer end looks like. And this is my fake, the best pro bono opportunity ever case that I made for the purposes of showing these screenshots, which was terrifying. So this is what it looks like in LegalServer, right? I can then, cannot see my slides, but that's what you sort of fill in all of these fields. Many of them are the same as they show in Paladin. Some of them are different. So you fill this in, and then it gets sent to Paladin, where it's showing as an available opportunity for me to review. So then I review that opportunity that's sent through LegalServer to Paladin, and then I'm looking at Paladin, right? And if you've ever posted something on Paladin, that's what that looks like. I can post it there, and then I can also see the dashboard too far. The dashboard view in Paladin, where I can see all of the cases that have been sent from LegalServer to Paladin. So there's a couple of things that we're doing here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's generally what we were trying to do, right? Sort of minimize the pain of having to keep track of everything in two places at a minimum, right? And I think the reality is a lot of us keep track of things in many things, and smooth that middle place, right? Someone is interested, how do we get them placed on the case?
Great, and now I'll pose the same question to Stephen, and so if you could just make sure that people understand how your portal differs.
Sure. So the nice thing about the word portal is it means nothing. We call it our Pro Bono Hub. And, in terms of like our 3 projects, it's really like the life cycle of a case, like finding opportunities, like actually placing the cases. And ours is actually the actual delivery of legal services to clients. So our organization has a history of in-person pro se, pro bono custody clinics and divorce clinics. And the pandemic killed those. And trying to get them back up, we realized that there are a lot of people now who, pro bono attorneys and clients, who would like an alternative than having to wait for 6 weeks, 8 weeks to show up at a room somewhere with a bunch of other people and talk about their personal problems with a pro bono attorney walk around the table and helping them fill out forms. And so we have this technology in Ohio with our statewide website, Ohio Legal Help. With the previous TIG, we had developed a user hub where people could fill out forms and save it along the way. And so we wanted to utilize that technology. And so it's a managed process for the clients. So we set up a collaboration group with one of our staff people, a pro bono attorney, and the client. And the client goes in. I guess I should click through these screens. The client goes in and fills out the pre-existing form that's already been developed by Ohio Legal Help. The first one we have right now is divorce. And what you're looking at now is what the pro bono attorney sees and what our staff sees. It's not a very pretty, it's not ugly, but it's not designed to be, oh, look how fancy and smancy this is. And it's not really mobile first, this side of it, because our staff and the pro bono attorneys are going to primarily be using desktops. But it's the basic information that they can fill out. The twist for our project, which I think makes it possible, is the ability for the clients, when they're filling it out, to post comments about what questions they have. And the pro bono attorney, and when the client finishes the form and hits submit, the pro bono attorney will get a follow-up email saying the client's completed the form and has questions. And so then the pro bono attorney logs into the system and can answer those questions for the client and say, okay, I'm done. And then the client will get either a text message or an email, whichever they prefer, saying that the pro bono attorney has reviewed the file. And when both the client and the pro bono attorney are satisfied that the document is done, they both mark it completed, and it goes back to our staff, who then helps that client, just like we would normally, making sure that whatever crazy legal forms the Ohio courts require are completed properly, and then they can go and file. And so this is,
That's the next
Can you
set
see
of
it?
questions.
sorry, I think I went
Do you
too
want to go
far.
back?
So this is what it looks like for the client. It's mobile first design. The stuff you see on the end, anybody can go onto the Ohio Legal Help website and use that now. But with our software addition, it lets you do the comment section. And so that's really, we're just really trying to leverage the attorneys now who want the opportunity to provide services, but but they can do it whenever they want. They're at court, sitting there doing nothing. They can go on and log in, and it may take weeks for the client and the attorney to get back and forth to finish the document. But if we were scheduling a clinic for both of those people, they would be waiting probably more time to get the final document. So.
Okay. So the next question is, I'll start with Don. What do you wish you had known when you were developing the portal? What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing now, and what would you have done differently?
So, like Melissa, I'm not a tech person. I'm a pro bono person. One of the things that I wished I had known was the length of time it takes to build a custom website. I was thinking, oh yeah, we should be able to launch a year after we start this project, and then we'll spend the second year of the grant term, going out doing outreach and publicizing it and really generating a lot of interest in the private bar, and that didn't happen. So how long it takes to do it? So if you're interested in developing something from scratch, really customizing it was great. I mean, everyone in Connecticut who has seen it has just been blown away by what they see and how it works. But again, we're now in the stage where we thought we'd be, over a year ago, which is doing the outreach. So really kind of get if you can, and it was something we wish we had done, is get a better sense of how long to expect this, the actual development to take. Part of this too was we didn't really get into looking at how it would look and sort of how long it would take to onboard our partner organizations. We couldn't do that until we had a really good, working development site. And so a lot of time was spent up front doing what the tech people tell me is the back-end work. We don't have legal server, although that's about to change. We have legal files. And we thought, okay, well, if we develop this for the 15 or 20% of the legal aid organizations that are like us and have legal files, then we'll have a tool that's different than other tools that are out there that really work well with legal server. Anyone who works with legal files knows it's not really user-friendly. It's very difficult to customize with it. So a lot of work had to be put in between our IT director and our developer, and that was being worked on right up front. And it took months and months and months. It also took some time at the end of our grant. So it took a lot of time. We just didn't realize how much time it was going to take to connect to our case management system. Once we had we went out and we hired a firm to do the design work for the website. This is probably one of the things that most people just go, wow. We have some of the most incredible graphics that help hopefully draw people to it. And that was the idea. We wanted it to look new. We wanted it to look exciting. We wanted to match the functionality. We wanted it to match the functionality. So once we were able to put that all together, we were able to start onboarding. And onboarding was a lot like herding kittens. So all of these wonderful people who wrote letters of support for us to get the grant and were our partners and were rah-rah-rahing us in the background, yeah, this is going to be wonderful. When it came time to train them as to how to use the new system, because quite frankly, they're going to manage their own page. We're not managing it for them. We're managing the SLS page, but we're providing you with the ability to be your own administrator. So you get to control your content. You get to make all the decisions with respect to what you post. And so that took a little bit of training. And we had a nice, really neat, short training video that was put together. It was really a PowerPoint presentation with embedded videos, which they could keep and use as a tool for, like, I forgot how to do this. Well, okay, you've got that tool. Man, scheduling was painful, especially around the summertime when everyone's going in other directions. So, again, I wish we had known that this was going to be a lot of issues, because we would have done things a little bit differently throughout the project.
And is that a present challenge, I think, keeping people engaged?
Yeah, a little bit. The portal, to really be effective, it has to look like people are paying, that, the organizations are paying attention to their pages, that the organizations are really managing it. And part of that is keeping the content fresh, updating, posting new opportunities, making sure, and we're not there yet. So our job will be not only getting the word out to the private bar, but kind of prodding our partners about how it's going to be more effective for them if they follow certain steps to keep their sites fresh too. So I think those were the things I wish I knew. And I see there's a question. Do we have time? You want to wait till the
I
end?
think we're going faster than I anticipated, so I don't mind taking a question. Okay, I am keeping time. I don't have a gong. I wanted to bring a gong, but I couldn't fit it in my suitcase. Did everybody hear that question? Okay.
So for us, we tried to mimic and plug this into our regular pro bono flow. So people apply for help for us. If our pro bono staff interviews them, does a brief interview, determines whether they qualify for the virtual clinic, and then we tell the client you're qualified, and we're going to now find you a pro bono attorney. And when we find that pro bono attorney, we tell the client who that pro bono attorney is, and then we give them instruction about how to go through the Ohio Legal Help website through our particular subnet of it, or whatever it's called, to create an account if they don't have one, or we can create an account for them. And then when they log in, they'll see who the pro bono staff is who's responsible to work with them, and the pro bono attorney who's been assigned to the case. And so, but all the communication between the client and the pro bono attorney is really supposed to happen within the portal. That's sort of the selling feature to the pro bono attorney. But like any pro bono case that we place, if something goes awry in that relationship, we're there to take the case back and deal with it. And so we can go in ourselves and do all the stuff that the pro bono attorney would have done, or pull them out entirely and just help them manually if we need to. So it's not a designed to fit everybody. It's designed for people who can manage that particular way.
Okay, all right. So I wish I could say that we were getting such a great demand from the private bar to have this brand new portal that would allow them to pick cases individually, and they'll be able to search and filter, and because that's what they really needed in order to really hype up their own, get their own game together and really do some volunteer work. I will tell you that there was a little bit of that, not a huge demand, but there was broad demand coming. So, I mean, we were hearing from our legal aid partners, others who were on the initial portal that was kind of like crumbling. But we also heard from the organized bar, from the Connecticut Bar Association. We heard from the judicial branch because they had programs that they wanted to be able to post. We heard from the University of Connecticut, who had a tax clinic. We heard from the IRS, they had a tax clinic. So we were hearing from basically from all the partners on the original, who really weren't doing anything anyway with that. But they were the ones who were saying, well, if only we had this platform. And I think the impetus came from a colloquium that the Connecticut Bar Foundation sponsored, where they brought in like 34 thought leaders, and they kind of like wrung their hands. How do we get more pro bono volunteerism? And they came up with like 7 different ideas, and there was one about technology, and that was really the only one that kind of like had legs. And there was a work group that got put together, and I think there was somebody from LSC that was at the colloquium as well. I mean, it was really an amazing, day-long experience. So, we got the sense that technology was really a necessary tool, and that's all it is. I know we all deal in pro bono with this culture, that only a small portion of the bar will do volunteer work, and you're going to knock yourself out trying to get the ones who aren't interested to try and get interested. This isn't going to do it. So we went in with it with our eyes wide open. This is not a cultural change. This is just a tool that's going to help attorneys and help organizations to be able to post their opportunities and do it in a very different way, and so that the attorneys will hopefully find more opportunities, more specific opportunities for what they want to do, or maybe what they want to learn to do. And we're very confident, maybe overly confident, that this is a tool that we'll start to see and generate more interest in the private bar. It's helpful, too, to have the organized bar really promoting volunteerism to their members, because they're our biggest market, quite frankly.
I want to say this, which is, I'm a provocative, I try to be provocative, but I hate the email list. Okay, so I do not think that putting together 6 opportunities and sending it to 500 people is an effective way to place pro bono cases. I try to never do that. And I know that a lot of people do, but that feels old to me. It feels like it doesn't match up with how people are working. And I think one of the things that I really am also experiencing is this issue of you have to be able to capitalize on someone's desire to volunteer when they have it, right? And so they can't, if there's an associate at a law firm who wants work, who wants pro bono work, who realizes that they have the time to do it, or they have a particular desire to help in a certain way, I don't want them to have to wait for my email list the next week, the next month, or to look at an old email list with a lot of opportunities that aren't there anymore because they've already been placed, right? So like, I think that that is where I am coming from with using a portal, right? Is this idea of wanting to do something, capitalize on someone's desire as quickly as I can. And it's the same reason that I really wanted to be able to integrate LegalServer and Paladin in this case, because if someone's interested, I want to get the conflict check information to them as quickly as possible and not have it sit in my inbox, right? Because I've got many other emails, because who here gets lots of emails? No one, right? So I think that that's the other thing, is like I'm trying to make it as fast as possible from that like, hey, I might be interested in something, to like, yes, I've got something to work on now and I'm engaged.
So can I just add, we wanted to do this because in our, we're in Akron, Ohio, and Goodyear is located there, and their legal department had expressed an interest in doing some project with us, and we had worked out that they were going to do a record sealing clinic for us in Summit County, and I think the first one was scheduled for sometime in the spring of 2020, and so that didn't work out, but we realized now we're using Zoom. I thought, well, why don't we just try if we can do something like this over Zoom, and so we started doing that, and the attorneys loved it because most of the attorneys who work at Goodyear don't live in Summit County. They live far away, and they can go home and log in at night on the Zoom, and we put them into breakout sessions, and they can talk the client through the form and fill it out. And in that process, it's hard for them to like looking at the same form and seeing what the idea came out of this desire to figure out a way that we could take advantage of people wanting to do things remotely, but in a more sophisticated way that didn't require them all to be together. So asynchronous communication was sort of one of the key features of this particular model for pro bono.
And I just want to jump in because I worked on the Connecticut portal, and when we were designing, the sign up page, we talked about do we have to require a membership? Can they do it anonymously? And I always think of when I'm shopping, when I'm on my phone and I'm not near my credit card, and if you can take if I don't need a password, or I can make that impulse buy, right? We wanted to set our portal up to be so that people could impulse buy. If I have to get my credit card, I'm not going to buy the thing, So we talked about, do we want to require juris number? Nope, because if they have to go look anything up, we just wanted to grab them when they have that thought of, oh, I want to volunteer. So I really liked what you said, Melissa, about not making people look through old emails. That I never even thought about using email as a way to recruit people not necessarily working very well. So that was great. Yeah, question? Well, if they do, we're ready for them.
I think there's another session, I think it's tomorrow, on you've built it, will they come, right? Which, because I do think
Field
that,
of Dreams reference on
and
here.
I don't know who's doing it if they're in the room, but show yourselves. But
Right over there.
Anais is doing. So I think that's right. There's something about you have to be recruiting right, you have to be pushing right, you have to be marketing right. But I think what you've touched on is one of the things that I was going to mention, which is that making something easier for me does not magically make a bunch of pro bono attorneys who are interested in this particular type of case, and it also doesn't create a bunch of cases, right? Like it just, it's not a perfect solution to every problem that you're having in your pro bono existence, right?
It's your turn to answer these questions, so go ahead.
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you wish you had known?
And I think that's one of the things that you have to have eyes wide open, right? And you have to be able to define your goals in a way that won't rely on, oh, I'm going to be able to get, because I think the acronyms that I always think about is everyone's always like, oh, there's tons of retired attorneys who want to do volunteer work. That's my other provocative thing to say. You can count it's two. So when I have somebody who's recently retired and they email me or they contact us and they say, I'm gonna retire, I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have all this free time. We live in Chicago, right? And so what happens is that person goes to another warmer place and I never hear from them again. So I don't know, again, if there's someone from Florida or Arizona or California. Okay, so Georgia's warmer, right? But I think the reality is like that's an example of like there's this belief that there's this huge pool of people where if you just reach them the right way, all of a sudden everything will be fine. And technology doesn't fix that, right? It just doesn't. And so I think that you have to be clear about what you are looking for. But the other thing I wanted to say in response to sort of the question of what I wish I would know is, right, I'm not a tech person. My job is obviously to make provocative comments in public settings. But not being a tech person, to piggyback off of what Adon was saying, like, I don't know, I know what I need, right? I know I need to spend less time going, okay, this person's interested, I've got their email. I know I need that, but I have no idea if that is something that is easy to do or hard to do. And I certainly don't know how much time it takes. And so I think that that is one of the things that, again, not being a developer, not doing things like this as part of my everyday job, there's a challenge between asking for too much and having it take much longer or being told, like, we can't actually do that, and asking for too little, right? Like, oh, that's really easy. We could easily do that. Do you really need a tick for this? Like, right? Like, so I think that it can be challenging when you don't know those things. And I just so that I'm not just raising a problem and also offering a solution, I think more discovery conversations with trusted partners is how you sort of answer that question. The other thing I would say is, you talked a little bit about upfront building, Don. I would also say that, you know, again, not a tech person. I happen to be married to a software developer. He will tell me that testing is actually the most time-consuming part of building anything new, right?
Yep.
And so I should have known that because that's all he complains about is testing. But I didn't think about that totally, right? And I think as pro bono people who get shown something that is pretty and built for them, you're like, this totally works, I love it, it looks so good. And maybe you test it once, maybe you put a fake case in there once and you're like, this is the best pro bono, oh look, it's working. I probably would have spent more time actually testing it. And then, and it is working, I just want to be clear about that, but also making sure that I still had people's attention when I was testing it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So like, I've tested it and now we have a call to talk about how that went for me, what things I want to change, right? And so that is another important part that, again, if you're not a tech person and you're thinking about pro bono opportunities, I think you have to make sure that you are taking testing seriously.
Yeah.
And you're making sure that you're able to offer feedback at every step of the way when you actually have tested.
Stephen, can I just follow
Great.
up? I just wanted to follow up with what Melissa was just saying. We spent months and months testing while we were going through development. We found lots of things that needed to go back and rework. When we finally got it in front of focus groups again, we listened to their experience. We gave them like, well, here's what we want you to find. Go out and find it. See how easy it was. We did all that. Testing took a lot of time. It takes a lot of work just organizing testing. So especially when we're doing it more or less remotely. So yeah, and it's huge because I mean, you're going to get out of if you're building it from scratch, if you're developing it from scratch, what you get out of it, a lot of that's going to come from how much you tested it. But to answer the question, we haven't had enough time yet to really promote it. We launched, and this is going to come up, I guess, maybe in another answer, but we launched it in October. We thought we were going to be launching it in April. We missed a number of big opportunities between April and October to be able to be out with the private bar. You know, they have an annual convention, and you know, we've attended it, but we didn't have the site back in June of 2023. So, you know, we saw that as a missed opportunity, but it wasn't ready. So we look at 2024 as, okay, now that we have this wonderful tool that very few people know about, that's the key. We need them to know about it. I'm ready to hit the road, go to any section of the bar association, go to any bar association, go to any function, take along a demonstration and show them. This is how easy it is if you have an interest. I'll talk to anybody and everybody about this website. So I need to get out there and do that. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's, you know, now that you've built it, will they come? You know, because I need tips too. But at the same time, I know we actually have some very good partners who are willing to, you know, bring me along and help me get in front of their audiences. And that's really it. It's just really marketing. It's really selling it. Again, it's a tool, but it's a tool that hasn't existed in our state. And so it's new. It'll be new for a lot of these people. And when they see it, they might want to say, hey, I'll take a look at it. And that's all we can do.
And so I just realized we didn't give Stephen a chance to answer this question. What do you wish you'd known differently when you were developing? Can you address some of the challenges you're experiencing now? And that's
Yeah. So first, I'll answer the other question about where we, like, are we hoping to get new attorneys and stuff? And I think the answer is yes, but we didn't design this with the idea that this will open the floodgates to new people. I mean, it's part of our larger pro bono project, and so, I mean, if we have a pro bono initiatives fund grant that's currently in expansion, but we called it a judicially led court-based clinic, and it's neither judicially led nor court-based. But what it enabled us to do was get the judges to be really active in recruiting volunteer attorneys to man that clinic, or to staff that clinic, sorry. This is being recorded, isn't it? And so the same thing here, like we are talking with the domestic relations courts and the judges about this project with the hope that they will entice attorneys that show up in their court to volunteer for this. So we already have a cadre of pro bono attorneys that have been doing these clinics for years, and they'll continue to do it. But that's sort of our shtick for how we're going to expand it, the pro bono base. In terms of what we were hoping, I think we've launched and we're in the sort of final user testing phase, making small tweaks. But it's like what happens after is there's now going to be this big gap. We have one form up and we're going to use it, but we talked about all the other forms we could do, and even staff could use this platform to help assisted pro se in the sort of asynchronous communications with clients. But we didn't do anything to plan for that, and so there's probably going to be a year gap between another useful form pops up on that website about training staff, and we could have done a lot of that during the course of the project. But so that I'd say that's my biggest regret.
Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Okay.
And much, much cheaper. And then are you
This actually is the next slide. So why don't I let them talk, and they might answer your question. That's a great question, and you're right. I'm noticing that things we talked about last year are quickly obsolete. Go ahead, Don.
Okay. So we're not thinking about it in terms of a return on investment, quite frankly. What we are looking for is what do we expect to gain, though? What do we expect to gain from having spent the time that we did and the funding that we got to build this new tool? And what we expect is it's going to take some time, and you talked about, shelf life. We need to really get out there and find out. Our expectations are is that once the bar is better, the private bar is better educated as to what's out there as far as a tool and who's on it, because it's not just us. There's so many organizations. I mean, you can do any kind of volunteer work you want, but if you really want to do pro bono, the kind of like, civil legal aid pro bono work, this is the place to come to. It's a one-stop shop, right? So we expect that this will have an impact, but we're not sure how much. In terms of its sustainability, it's built in the cloud, so we think it's going to be highly sustainable. It's not going to be subject to server attacks. It's going to be very inexpensive, almost like pennies to maintain from this point forward. It's free for all of our partners who are on it. So it's extremely low maintenance and low cost. So it's like the money that we've spent. That's pretty much what we've invested. We're not going to continue to invest in this over and over and over again.
Ours is a Google Firebase project. We jumped on Google because it's really inexpensive, like you said, to maintain, and Google's moving fast. So we're hoping that will address some of the sustainability issues, because I think a lot of us have built websites and then, oh, it's obsolete. Oh no, it won't be supported next year. Now we have to build another one. So we're trying to avoid that by going with Google.
Well, we've been there and done that. I mean, this has replaced another portal. Like, that was just it was falling apart because it wasn't being supported anymore by the
Drupal
designer.
7.
And the last thing I'll say is, like, the one expense that we have, we hired someone to do a lot of different pro bono projects for us, and one of them is to be the administrator for the portal. So she's the person who does the training, onboarding, helps keep it, keeping the look fresh. She's the contact person for 15 other organizations and any attorney who's like, I don't know what something's wrong, or I see something. So, a fraction of her salary goes to help maintain, be the person who maintains that particular site. So I could probably answer that question better in 2 years, but having attended the prior session here on generative AI, the scary thing for me is AI going to come in and just totally make this obsolete in a year or two? I mean, that's not something that has been on our radar.
AI going to make us all, like you
Yeah.
and me and us, all obsolete in a year or two?
No, it's going to make us way more efficient.
We'll always need executive directors.
Melissa, do you want to address the question?
So I'm not a tech person. I'm also not a finance person, right? So terms like ROI, I'm not somebody who can tell you, this is how much we spent and this is how much we've gained. And I think that the thing is that when it comes to pro bono work in particular, a lot of it is not quantifiable in the way that we would like, right? I think that building relationships with people through placing cases is something that you hope you get an ROI in certain ways, but you can't always tie it exactly and you can't guarantee it. But to be clear, the TIG accomplished exactly what we wanted to do, right? Which is that there is an integration between Paladin and LegalServer. And the fields, the API that exists, they're calling on fields that will continue to exist in both LegalServer and Paladin, right? So in terms of that, I'm not as concerned. I think the impact is things can go faster, right? And I think the other thing that it can have, the other impact it can have, is that we're trying to make less bottlenecks, right? So again, there's a bottleneck of getting the case to a pro bono attorney, which again, having a case handler or the person who's responsible for the case, being able to send it for pro bono without having to do 2 or 3 emails ahead of time does go faster. my being able to review something that's already in the Paladin form and just being able to edit because somebody said the wrong thing, and you know how that goes, right? Make it more appealable is faster. Being able to have it available and then have that automated into Legal Server about what the status of placement is, that is going faster. And being able to do the conflict check, which is really like one thing the pro bono attorney can click and say, yep, this cleared, instead of having to send me an email and saying it cleared, it's good, right? Like, and they get an automatic reminder saying you're supposed to do a conflict check on this. Did you do it? So there's lots of like little bits of my time and my team's time and my staff's time that we're getting back. And you know, I don't want to promise that I'm always using that time exactly right. that those bits of time that I'm getting back, I don't know that I'm also being as productive as I can be with it, but the point is that it is faster, so it's doing what we thought it would. I think there's lots of potential to make it bigger and more, right? I think that there's a lot of things that can happen, that could happen, that may happen. But I do think that is sort of what we think the impact is going to be and how we can see it developing further.
And Stephen, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm probably one of the last decent-sized legal aids using the PICA case management system, so I know all about dead-end software and poor ROI. But we intentionally baked this whole project is baked into the Ohio Legal Help platform, which is the statewide platform that I don't expect is going to go anywhere anytime soon, and it's built on technology that we used in previous TIGs to add technology to the platform, and this is just another layer. And it's designed to also, it's called, I think the technical term is multi-tenant. I don't know what that means, but like other legal aids in Ohio, all they have to do is say they want to use it, and we can spin off a separate instance for them, and without any real work at all. They'll have to do training and stuff, but it's instantly expandable. And we just think that over time, things like I think the advantages of, like we've discussed about the no travel time and are all things that are going to make it attractive to the pro bono attorneys and to the clients over time, especially if we start spinning down our in-person clinics. But our hope really is that the other legal aids will adopt it, and things like generative AI. So the whole thing is built. The web form itself is built on Drupal web form, and that's open source software that at some point, if people figure out how to integrate generative AI into that, we could just plug that in. It'll be just like that. You just plug it right in. We just think there's a lot of. It's not designed to be obsolete. It's designed on a platform that lots and lots of people are using on a proven technology, and so we think it'll be able to we'll be able to keep up with the changing technology.
I want to jump in, and I think we could all take a moment to plug our portals as replicable, I think. In Connecticut, we built the portal using Google Cloud. Our hope would be that if somebody's looking for a portal and they're looking for one that does what ours does, which is more recruitment, they could take our code base and replicate it and add onto it, and then we could share that technology back and forth and improve it going forward. And so that's, I think, what a lot of us do. That's kind of how legal aid works. So that's one way to address sustainability. But I've also just noticed with tech projects, everything you work on in 5 years, everyone's going to say it was horrible. That is just how it's old, it's obsolete, it's awful. And I'm like, well, it was good 10 years ago.
I should point out that Kate was the one who built the prior platform that was.
I've grown a thick skin.
But she did it with $0, and she did it on her own time, and it was at the beginning it was something that was brand new, and it was very exciting, and we had a judge do an introduction, and he's come back and done another introduction for us on the new portal. What happens is the platform stopped being supported, and it was getting a little rickety, and we were seeing a lot of spam, and, it just, so it wasn't that we were criticizing what Kate had built, it's just that it needed to be
It's
replaced.
the nature of technology. So we have, I don't know, I think 10 minutes left. I have some more questions, but if the audience has questions, I'd rather get to those. Go ahead.
So, again, this is actually, so Paladin's default is that it'll be a month. I always change it depending on what type of case it is. So, again, the type of pro bono program that I run is very specific to how our Legal Aid Chicago has designed it to run. So a lot of our cases, I don't do a lot of like, we have this case, if anyone will help this person ever, then that would be great. I don't have a lot of those opportunities. Again, I don't think that that's super fair to the client to leave them hanging, and if we find a pro bono attorney, then you can get legal services. So I always adjust the time, so it's defaulting to 30 days. I will always adjust the time based on the type of matter that it is, and that is something that I'm always making sure that I'm communicating with the case handler about, and that is one of the things that can be transferred over, right? So the expiration date of the opportunity, so you can actually do that in Legal Server. It'll transfer over to Paladin in terms of when it should expire. So again, placing cases, that like, we need someone a week from now, we need someone 2 months from now, there's a deadline, you can change it depending on what type of case.
And I'll tell you that although we don't have individual cases yet posted, our website, our portal, actually that's one of the highlights of it. It will be, people and organizations will be able to post individual cases. And each organization can decide what time frame the post should stay up for. And we've designed it so that you don't have to like put it into your electronic calendar, I got to take the case down. The website is designed, the portal is designed to automatically pull it down. It's also automatically designed, and again, for every opportunity that's posted, for every individual opportunity that's posted, the posting organization can set parameters. I only want this up here for a week. I only want to. I need one volunteer, but I may need to hear from 3 or 4 before I know I've got a good match. So I'm going to limit the number of people who express interest to 3 or 4, to a particular number. And then when it hits the number, it's unpublished. It's unpublished automatically. And then if 2 weeks go by, if you set it for 2 weeks and 2 weeks go by, the opportunity becomes unpublished. It doesn't go anywhere, it just doesn't show up anymore. And if you want, as an organization, to republish it, you just simply like hit a toggle switch, boom, it goes back up. There's so many little details to the thing that we built because we were able to customize it from scratch, that we thought about those. We looked at other portals. We were trying to figure out, well, what is it that really works well? What do we think will really work well for? And that's when we were thinking about our partners, not so much the attorneys. So
I just wanted to add on that one of the other features that I think is what you just said, of this idea of like, it's not always, and sorry, my training's in the room, it's not always one person, one case, right? It's sometimes like you really do need to get 3 people who might say they're interested, so you can kind of vet them a little bit and tell them a little bit more information, and then if they say, well, no, never mind, you have somebody else in the way, and there is an easy way to sort of keep track of those volunteers to say, like, these are the people who expressed interest. Yes, I'm placing it with this person, and then it'll come down. That was one of the things that we worked through, right? If someone says there is no conflict, or if they express interest, does it automatically come down? That can be changed for each case, too. You can have somebody automatically placed or not, right? And so for me, I'm almost always going to want to vet that person a little bit before I say, like, this is the case for you. I feel great about this. So having that option is really great. I think, again, it's just a really important reality of what it's like to place cases with pro bono attorneys, that one person that immediately volunteers may not be your forever match.
I have another question.
other thing about your email list is that there's this pressure. Now this is a panel on should you have an email list to send out pro bono opportunities, which, okay. But just to say that one of the issues that I always had with the email list is like, is it really appropriate if I only have one case? Right? Like there's this pressure to get the right number of cases to put in your email newsletter. Because God forbid you skip a Wednesday, right? And so that's the other thing is, and the other thing that I like about it is it gives me the freedom to post a long shot. Right? So if you have a group of users who are, consistently reading your newsletters, and you know that that's part of your reputation, right? Is like, these are the types of cases that we have for pro bono attorneys. And then you get this real long shot, and you're like, oh boy, I gotta put this in the newsletter and everyone's gonna read it. So it's kind of nice, like, maybe there's someone out there who might wanna do or have this very specific knowledge or be interested in this very specific type of case. And you're not sort of, I don't want to say abusing your email list, right? But you're not worried about losing some of the cachet from having a really good newsletter. Or my fear when I always send a newsletter, because the pro bono counsel told me this, is that he will edit that one out, right? So.
Go ahead.
Sure.
We have just like 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So.
We have a really active panel of maybe 250 practitioners. The panel list is up to maybe 1,000, but they're not always active. We're in Connecticut. We don't have major firms. We don't have like a huge city with big law firms in it. So they tend to come from smaller firms. We have a lot of solos who are volunteering. How do we market to them? That's the big question, right? How do we market? We want to get our opportunities out there. We work with law firms, we work with anybody, but in terms of how we're going to market the portal, it's asking to be in front of as many groups as possible within the private bar.
But
and
Chicago's
that's the main
take
issue.
is very different, and it wasn't going to work for Connecticut, right? That was why we didn't go.
Oh, we think Paladin is great, but it just wasn't, it wasn't a good match for what we needed. We worked with them. We talked to them. We talked with Melissa as part of our research.
So, I'm in Chicago, so I work with a lot of large law firms. We work with a lot of corporations. We work with mid-sized firms. But we also, the Bar Foundation's pro bono portal is also on Paladin, so we get people who are just solo practitioners, other people who are active in the bar. And so we do have a number of different pro bono projects that range from this will take an hour to this will take 2 years, and so it really depends on the project who our volunteers are most likely to be. But I will say that one of the things that I like about the reach of something that's not on our website is that Illinois has a rule, right? If you're doing pro bono work, you can get admitted to the bar for the purpose of that pro bono work. So I can reach out of state attorneys, I can reach people outside of Chicago, though I try to be respectful of my other legal services agencies who are also in the room I can see to make sure that I'm not cannibalizing their volunteers. But it is nice because the reach can be broader, and that's one of the things that is, you can specify, like, this is a remote opportunity, you can do it from anywhere, and we can get you through the bar licensing, can get you that temporary license as long as you're working with us.
We are really almost out of time. LSC has asked me to remind you all to fill out the survey. And if you have other questions, you can come.